Hi, welcome back to Hubert's Hot Rods and Fabrication. Today, we're going to be working on the rear fenders. They are in pretty rough shape. They are dented across the back, smashed in, and then the front has got some wrinkles on this side and it's all rusted. I've got patch panels to replace these, but let's get to work on them. They have a little split here that needs to get taken out. This side is all crushed. So putting this back into shape is going to be extremely fun. So watch along. We're going to take a closer look and get at it. First thing I need to do is remove this tail light extension. Those things are really hard to find. And this one's not in very good shape, but it is reusable. So I'm going to take my time and try to take it off. But most likely the bolts that feed through the back side are going to end up snapping. But let's see. As you can see, these came off really nice. So we're going to put all these pieces back together and save them because who knows how hard it's going to be to refine these. I've tried finding the taillight extensions, and everybody that has them that are aftermarket are out of stock. So I haven't had any luck even on eBay. All right, we are going to get to work on the fender now. And now it's time for everybody's favorite, rust removal. We got to remove all the scaly rust before I do anything. So time to put on my PPE and hit it. Okay, I've got the first step of the rust removal essentially done, getting all the scaly stuff. Now I can hit it with hammers and dollies and not have to worry about damaging my tooling. That's essentially what that whole point of that process was, plus it being the first step. Now, I had a couple people comment why I'm not chemical dipping this car or having it sandblasted. One, simply not in the budget. This car is a 1937 Ford Coupe. They're not very desirable. I'm probably not going to have a very easy time getting rid of this car to begin with. They're not as desirable, I should say, as, say, a 36 Ford Coupe or a 40 Ford Coupe. Sits right in the middle. I personally love them. I think the grills on them are beautiful. I like them, but that doesn't mean much, right? It means what somebody else wants. So I say all that to say, I'm not sandblasting this or anything like that because it's just not in the budget. Now I might have the chassis sandblasted. Um, that I would love to have the bottom of the car, the car lifted off, pull the chassis out, sandblast the chassis before I have to do any of the Mustang 2 and rear suspension that I planned to do on this. That would be great to sandblast it. But if not, then I will mechanical strip everything with wire wheels, sand it all down. I will use a rust inhibitor to transform that rust into good, clean metal. And then I'll treat it properly, coat it with the proper paints, pour 15 most likely, and then a top coat on top of that. But that's the plan for this car, to keep it somewhat budget, but to do a good job. This is something that I'm working in a very small shop. I'm trying to show people that you can do this. This is very easy to do. Just follow along, maybe teach somebody to teach you how to weld or how to get better. But I always recommend for like welding, apprentice with somebody or your community college. Take a class in your local community college. That's how I got to where I'm at. But anyway, let's keep working on these fenders, and we're going to get the sandbag out, and we're going to start getting some of the shape back into these fenders. All right, let's get set up and do this. Okay, I've got my Eastwood sandbag out and my stand, and I'm just going to make sure that there's a few lumps in here. I'm just going to kind of like shift the sand around. I don't want to I'm not going to go crazy on this fender. I'm just trying to get some of the dents out. We're going to do the rest on the English wheel. So I'm just kind of massaging out any lumps in there before I go crazy. And we're going to focus on this area for now of the fender where it's all crunched. I'm going to try and get that all hammered back out. All right, I just hit the sandbag a little bit, and to kind of make it dished to help me get this curve is it's as I hit it, the sand is moving out of the way of the metal. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you can see that. But the low portion is moving out of the way, so I got to keep resetting where the sand is to get the position of the metal where I want it to be pushed out. Okay, now I'm going to show you a closer look here. All right, now you can see the majority of the fender is still really wrinkly, and it's got a lot of creases in there, but the actual dent is coming out. I still got to lower or hit in this area and try to get this fixed. All right, I'm going to stop there, put this in time lapse for a little bit because I'm going to be at this for a second. All right, I'm set up here at the English wheel, and I'm going to try to get a little bit of this wrinkle, a little bit more of this wrinkle out. This is not going to be an easy task to do by myself, but that's how I roll. I'm only bringing this up till I make contact with the material. I'm not trying to stretch it. I'm not trying to reshape it. I'm just trying to get all the wrinkles out of it. And going over it roughly like this will help. I have a pretty high crown lower die on here right now. Definitely a higher crown than I need. But again, like I said, low pressure is the name of the game here. I'm not trying to reshape anything. I didn't want a flat die because a flat die will leave tracks on the outside. If I use a really high radius die, then I'm only touching in the very center to my upper wheel. A little more pressure. Now we're coming into where it was really wrinkled up there. Tight space here. All the wrinkles are definitely coming out. Nice and slow. Take your time, take my time. There's a big crease right there where the wheels are touching right now. So I'm going to crank up. It's a crease that's in the metal, and you can see it's nice and loose because it's sliding still. So I'm going to put a little bit more pressure on it to try to get that crease out. And I'm going to stay focused just in that area of the crease. All right. This lower edge is roasted. But we're going to fix it. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to show you how. You're along for the ride, so there is definitely a we. All right. And out. All right, look at how much better that looks. Yes, this is still mangled right here, but that's going to be hammer and dolly. I got to re-weld this seam. There's a split there. I'll re-weld that hammer and dolly, that wrinkle back out. But this, what I was worried about and focused on, is nice and smooth. Super smooth. Little bit of work. I mean, of course, there's still a little bit of work that needs to happen. But that huge dent, that's almost gone. All right. Now, to keep working on the rest of the fender. There's a couple dents in here. I'm going to get those taken care of since I'm already working on it. If I can get this in here like this. And again, just bringing it right up to metal. And rolling it out. I don't want to use I could use the planishing hammer for this, but I think right tool for the job is definitely the English wheel. English wheel or hammer and dollies if you don't have an English wheel. I think the planishing hammer, yes, it can be done, but you'll get yourself into some trouble quickly by overstretching metal. Then you're forced to re-shrink it. All right, let me focus on what I'm doing here. Okay. Where I'm focusing at is going to be where that extension panel that I have that's going to get a replacement, excuse me, is going to get cut off in here and replace this lower half here. So I want what's above it to have the right shape from the factory, because the stamped aftermarket pieces, God only knows how good of quality they actually are until I start to actually fit them. Chances are, my experience, no patch panels are ever perfect. Okay, I need a little more pressure on this corner right here. And this is the main reason that I have the high radius dies, so I can get into this high radius corner also without switching dies. A little more pressure. All right, we're gonna come out of there because I don't have the room and I don't want to mess this up, and I can do the rest of that by hammer and dolly. All right, now we have another fender to get brought up to this speed, right? Get up to this point. Oops, there's a little dent right here. I'll take care of that with hammer and dolly. All right, here's a closer look at that fender. This is the area that was completely crushed. Wrinkles came out of it and everything. There was a huge crease right there where the 3 holes are. Right across there, there was a huge crease. That's come out now. Then we worked along the bottom. And then there's a closer look at what's got to happen. I'm going to have to re-weld and hammer and dolly that as I weld it. Cut it, grind it, re-clean it, weld it, hammer dolly, rinse and repeat. Comes around and it wraps around the bottom edge of the fender. So that's going to be really interesting. It'll have its challenges. So we will stay tuned and we'll get through it together. So there's the same thing. You know, this is pinched and creased along the bottom there. All of the rest of the dents have come out of there. This is nice and smooth. There's a little dent right there that I'll get out with hammer and dolly that I couldn't get with the English wheel. And then here's this. Yep. So the next thing that I'm going to do is fix the crack in the fender so it gains a little bit more rigidity, and then start working on this bottom half for the same reason. Now it's really important that the back half of this fender comes back to where it needs to be, because this is the flange inside here that's all cracked that I'm going to have to repair, but this is the flange inside of here that mounts to the lower tail panel in the back of the car. I'll show you that real quick. Now here's the lower area. It is completely rusted, crunched, mangled, whatever you want to say, chewed up. But that fender needs to be as close as possible so I can put the outer panel, the replacement patch panel that's going to go in here, in place. The fenders are going to locate everything, so everything's nice and has a nice seams. The trunk has got to fit right. The fenders have got to fit right. Everything's got to fit right. All right, so now that we went over that, back at the fender, looking at this piece here, I want to, like I said, I think I want to start here to regain some rigidity. So I got a couple pairs of pliers. I'm just going to kind of rework that inside edge. Oops. As you can see, it's creased and split and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to have to bring that rolled radius back in and get it to clamp together. Trying to get it to where you can actually see what I'm doing too. Just nice little bites with my Nip-X pliers. Getting that 3 shape. Now obviously you don't have to use Nip-X. You can use whatever you have. I'm just trying to get a sponsor, you know what I'm saying? These things are expensive. All right, that's moved where I want it to be. Nice and close anyway. No overlapping metal. I can feel it on the back side. We'll take a look at that a little bit closer. That's looking much better already on the front side because the back side is where it needs to be. Now we can just kind of clamp the inside. I'm going to try to use some handy dandy clamps. That's going to keep all the metal where I want it to be when I flip this over. I hope. Okay, now I want this as relaxed as possible. That feels good. And now I see that there's a very big mismatch here. I'm less concerned about the rolled edge right now matching up. I can always weld this seam as I come around and rework that metal. So we're going to take that clamp back off now that I see that. Grab a couple clamps. Yeah, that's going to do it. Okay. Grab my wire wheel. Doing my best to clean the rust out of that crack. I'm just working this clamp around. Okay. Fender feels nice and relaxed. It is very, very close to being flush. We're just going to give a little bit of hammer and dolly treatment with my little ring dolly. Slide that right in underneath the clamp. That's really close to flush. Definitely weldable. All right, I'm going to get set up with the welder and we'll get that tacked in. Okay, I'm all set up to weld this crack. Little wipe with acetone, get in there and clean this up. It's pretty important to try to not get as much porosity as possible. We'll keep that handy, but out of the way, obviously. Acetone is flammable. All right, here we go. Crank my amps down. About 35 amps. On my good old Prime Weld TIG welder. Again, not sponsored. I just love this thing. All right, I went back over that because I had a little bit of porosity. I had a little pinhole. Letting that cool down. That's still looking really good. I'm going to continue welding. Stick. Okay, I'm going to stop there because the backside is a little creased still, and I need to use the pliers to get that clamped and brought back together. And I don't want to do that until or I don't want to continue welding until I do that. Excuse me. Okay, you see what I mean? It definitely don't look right. You know what I mean? The two pieces of metal there. So I'll grab my clamp and continue to rework these two pieces. Now the outside is held so the two pieces won't continue to split on me like that. I have a lot more control on this rolled edge now. I'm just biting down and prying this edge out ever so slightly. There it goes. Now they're aligned. Well, they were for a second. That's looking a lot better. Now I want to get this, there we go, nice and relaxed. I like to keep my clamp close to where I'm welding. All right, here we go. Again, low amperage. I'm just rolling into my weld. All right, I got a little some contamination there at the end. You might have been able to see that. Yep, you see that? Sparks. A little bit of porosity, but that's all right. It'll grind out. But there we have it. Now it's time to clean up these welds with my die grinder. All right, as you've seen in the time lapse, we've got that all ground down and metal finished, and everything looks good. It's nice and smooth. There's a couple pinholes, but I can fix those later. I'll just come back with the welder and hit it. Once I have the welder all set up, I still got to weld this whole front end and fix that. I still have this back end to do, but it's the same process over and over. Um, Thank you for watching this episode of Hubert's Hot Rods and Fabrication. Like, subscribe, tell your friends about it. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.